begin with the treasurer's report for the month of March 2014. Cash receipts in the current fund account for the period March 1st through March 31st were $431,135.39. Cash balance in the current fund as of this period totaled $8,026,640.74. And the cash balance in the water utility account as of March 31st, 2014 was $1,423,550.32, submitted by our treasurer, Shari Bowler. Department reports. I'm going to begin actually with something that by this point should be old press, but I thought it a matter to put on record at our meeting. I guess about almost 2 weeks ago, the Office of the Inspector General released a summary of the audit of the FEMA funds that were made dedicated to Beach Haven for the debris portion of the cleanup of Sandy. Unfortunately, what sometimes happens when there are a number of there are very high figures involved and it gets distributed by various news media sources, there are some distortions and misreadings. I know the main headline seemed to go out that Beach Haven was obligated to give back $4 million in FEMA funds. That's entirely incorrect. I'll try to very briefly go through really what the scenario is. Essentially what happened was, I guess about a week after the storm hit, the first wave of FEMA people had come out. They did an assessment of the condition of Beach Haven in terms of debris. Debris is not just the household and business debris, but they also counted the 4 feet of sand that clogged most of our streets as debris. They did a rough estimate of what that would cost to remove. And we were one of the first towns in New Jersey that they obligated funds to clean that debris. The amount of the original award was for $4,858,359.50, rather large sum. Now, we did not get a check for that. We have never seen most of that money. What happened was, within about a week's time after that, the freeholders and the county administration of Ocean County, in their wisdom, looked upon small towns such as Beach Haven and others throughout the county that were going to be really hard-pressed to come up with this kind of money right away to do this kind of cleanup and removal. And they made an interlocal agreement available, of which Beach Haven was one of the first to sign on. And he said, well, why would we do something like that if FEMA had obligated $4.8 million to us? The kicker is you don't see that $4.8 million right away. In fact, we still have not seen anywhere near $4.8 million. We would have been obligated to go out and borrow $4 million in short-term notes and be continually paying interest on those short-term notes as we go through what we're finding to be the very long and tedious process that is what is better known as getting your money back from FEMA. So we never did ever see that money. What we did see was they took that $4.8 million, and there's a formula that they use for this. They took the original award, they then take 75% of that award, and they obligate that in the system. Again, obligated, no checks cut, simply obligated within the computer system. It's passed on to the state of New Jersey, and from that, the state of New Jersey then makes available to us 50% of the award. So I'll do the math. We go from 4.8 to 75%, which is 3.6, to 50%, which now we're down to 1.8. Again, we received that money. However, we were not able to actually take that in as revenue. It had to be set up in a separate account until we got permission from both FEMA and the state to use that money. To date, we so far have taken in as revenue of that $1.8 million, $438,859.07. So the $3 million that the county put forth to clean up our household debris, that's been taken care of. The $1.2 million in other debris-related expenses that we had to borrow for, again, we've only gotten $438,000 back on that. So there's still a fair amount of money we're still looking to collect from FEMA. Again, it's a very long process. I spent about 3 hours on Thursday afternoon meeting with state representatives and our own consultants to get ready for another meeting that we have with FEMA tomorrow. This has nothing to do with debris. There's 4 other projects. We have 34 projects that we're looking to recover money from FEMA for. It's an incredible process. I guess that's the best way to put it. And unfortunately, that one number got seized by the news media and then just got broadcast all over. I know a lot of people's got these notices on their smartphone saying that, you know, Beach Haven has to repay $4 million, which was utter nonsense. And unfortunately, it's very easy to get that word out. It's very hard to take it back. So, moving on to other matters, we have the adoption of our 2014 municipal budget on for this evening. There were a few changes to the budget, not coming from us really. It actually came from the State Division of Local Government Services, which is the regulatory body that looks over municipal budgets. I know Shari and Mike, our finance people, have been working with the state over the last week or so, and we only, I guess a few hours ago, got finally the green thumbs, the heads up that we could adopt a budget tonight. Total appropriations currently as they stand in this budget would be $11,321,225.10. This is an increase over the previous year of $419,703. Changes from the introduced budget last month. The state actually reduced the contributions the town is going to have to make to both the police pension as well as the office or other, what we call a PERS pension. They're reducing that by $36,790 off what we originally had in terms of bills for that. They also requested that we reduce an appropriation. We had our first appropriation in there for to start paying down some of the storm-related expenses of $112,500. They asked that we take that out of the appropriation line item. So the net change to the appropriations from that was introduced is $149,290. In terms of the revenue portion of the budget, the state asked that we increase the amount we have for a construction code interlocal. We provide construction and inspection services for not just Beach Haven, also Surf City, Harvey Cedars, and Barnegat Light. I bill these towns for these services monthly. This is not something that is normally done. It's kind of a hybrid here. Depending upon who reviews the state budget is whether they question it from year to year. This is probably the first time in about 4 or 5 years they've questioned it. And they asked that we make the anticipated revenue match, I believe, what the appropriation was last year. So we had to increase our anticipated revenue by $50,304. We also had to make a change in the use of surplus. We reduced the use of anticipated surplus by $87,094. Everything else pretty much remains the same as that was introduced last month. The amount to be raised by taxation to support the 2014 budget will be $7,058,935, which results in a tax rate of 42.92 cents, which is an increase of 4 cents over the previous year. Water utility budget remains the same as introduced as well. Water utility budget totaling $1,783,825. We will be getting to the actual budget a little bit later in the evening. On a final note, I don't know if anybody's been watching the progress of the lifeguard headquarters that's going up on Center Street. It's going to be, I believe, a magnificent structure when it's done. We're going to begin selling our preseason badges Unfortunately, they won't be able to occupy that building right away. It still will be under construction, so we're going to be putting a temporary structure in front there for maybe another 4 to 6 weeks. Because again, last year we established that as a location that folks would be buying the beach badges. We want to keep things consistent and eliminate any confusion. So our beach badge sales will be beginning in beginning of May at the Center Street location again, this evening.
One thing I like to add about it's sometimes a little difficult to follow these headlines that you see in the. I picked up the Bergen Record and I couldn't believe it. You know, Shoretown has to give back $4.2 million. You know, dealing with FEMA, I mean, in layman's terms, it's absolutely unbelievable. Trying to find anybody who is in their position for more than 6 months with a town is very unusual. Every time we turned around, we had a new representative. We started all over again. We have a consulting firm, that's a post-engineering consulting firm that deals in tragedies all around the world. They operate in 60 countries, and they absolutely pull their hair out. New Jersey is the only state where the state police are in charge of this fund, of emergency management, which really makes sense. I mean, that's, if you have a problem, you want the police. If we had a problem here, I'd feel very comfortable if our police were involved. Dispersing and handling the financial aspects after this storm, I think, just put them into a real tough position. On top of that, we lost half of them. They got Homeland Security called them off once the Super Bowl was in place because they all had to go on patrol for the Super Bowl. But when I saw that headline, what got me extremely upset was not only do I, and I will go on record, have we had so many incompetent people from FEMA, the agency, but then you have news reporters that don't read past a headline and just want to put a splash out there. Now, if I read in the paper that, Jim, you got audited, right away I think you did something wrong, you got audited, had to give back $4 million. That's not the case. We get this money, we get approved for $4.8 million. We try to give it back. The state police wouldn't let us give it back. We tried to deobligate it. Our consultant said, you have to do it. They wouldn't let us give it back. The audit was not an audit because you're guilty. It is an audit of the process. We had 16 auditors show up here. We said, for what? For the money you spent. Well, we didn't spend the money. We didn't get the money, right? They all walked in here from all parts of the country. So they said, well, that's okay. We're going to audit you anyway. So they spent time here, and it was actually very informative. Every time we get through these steps, it's very informative. But, I mean, thank God for Rich and Sherry, Mike, and the rest of the people here. It becomes an absolute full-time job. You never know who's going to walk in the door and who's coming on first. And if the county didn't step in, I mean, we would have had to raise taxes. And you can't give taxes back. Raise them, hopefully we get the money back, but if we had to raise taxes to cover the debris removal, how do you give it back? I mean, we never thought that it would take this long to get monies coming back. And I sat through a FEMA meeting at the county level. Under their contract, we signed on for $64 a cubic ton to have the trash removed. Only one company was under a Connecticut contract had the availability equipment to do this. And they said, well, even though New York City used the Army Corps of Engineers at $125 a cubic ton, they're okay. You can spend more money. But the fact you're doing it under the county contract is $64, you might not get reimbursed because it wasn't a competitive bid. But it was the only people at the back. But this is, you know, every time you try to do things, when you sit down and when there are problems or issues you discuss that could be solved by a second grader, it gets completely frustrating. And meanwhile, we're spending a lot of money, we're moving forward. And like Rich said, what did we get? 418,000 out of that 4.8 million. And you see what the headlines are. So when you see audit, when it has to do with anything like this, it's not audit because of suspicion of wrongdoing. They have to come back and they audit the process just to see how you're managing the process. So I just want to throw that out because it has been, I don't know how the folks in Borough Hall here have handled it. No one really sees all the stuff that goes on. But these meetings are sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 times a week. And you can see we have not made much headway. And I was with 50 mayors today up in Trenton. No one's made any headway. I mean, this is the way it is. It's all bottleneck now, trying to get the money released.
Sorry, Rich, I had to throw that in. It gets me aggravated.